Hello, party people, and welcome to another episode of the Mug Life Podcast. I'm Brittany, and before I even just dive into this topic, I have got to tell you, I'm covering up my mug for a reason, and if you're listening on audio, you're going to have to go to my YouTube channel and check out the video if you want to know what this looks like, but I have a very funny mug to show you, okay? Look. That is my face on a mug. Yeah. So I have really cool friends and they made this mug for me and I thought it was hilarious. Okay, it's actually like really cringy and I feel like slightly vulnerable and embarrassed because I'm using this to drink out of. And I think if somebody like saw me like out and about just like drinking my coffee and they saw that it was my face, they'd probably be like, "What is wrong with this girl? Like she is obsessed with herself." But luckily you guys know that I'm not that kind of girl, but I do love a good cringy mug. So I think this is going to be a thing now where I'm going to start just bringing the most random absurd mugs into my show and it'll just leave you guys guessing and always coming back. So anyways, maybe this is a sign that merch is in the future. I don't know. Not with my face on it. I don't really want you drinking out of mugs with my face on it, but you know, mug life, right? Anyways, I'm gonna drink this because my coffee's hot. It's actually a latte. I went and bought a latte and poured it into this mug to enjoy during this podcast because sometimes you gotta be a little fancy, right? Okay, hang on. Oh, it's extra good. In case you're wondering, it's an almond milk latte because dairy hurts my belly with 2 pumps of vanilla and 2 pumps of praline. So anyways, let's just dive right in. So today's episode, I am going to be talking about why I stopped tracking macros. And funny thing, I am actually a certified macro coach, believe it or not. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But so this is about why I stopped tracking macros and then how I help my clients lose weight without it and how I have been successful losing weight and changing my body composition, putting on muscle, like really honestly getting in the best shape of my life, even like pre-babies. And I've had 2 babies, all without tracking macros. And there was a short time where I was tracking macros and I was not in great shape. So let's just dive on in because this is a topic that I know will be debated. And I want to start off before I even dive in and tell you that like, if you are somebody that is tracking macros and it's working for you, by all means, like this is not me saying like, don't track macros. Macros are bad. I just don't coach my clients with macros. I don't use macros. I don't track food. I don't count calories and points. And I'll talk more about why, but I want you to understand that I'm not going to judge you if tracking macros works for you because really what matters most is you find a way to go your entire life without feeling like you need to crash diet every 20 seconds. And so if tracking macros works for you and it works with the phase of life you're in and the things that you're doing and it just feels good, please just keep tracking macros. I will leave that up to you. You can have the food scale and the numbers and the grams and all that. Like you do you, boo. Okay. So I wanted to put that out there first. I am not bashing anybody that tracks macros. In fact, like I said, I'm a certified macro coach and I love my mentor that I worked with. And I would recommend working with her a million times over because she is amazing. And I met so many amazing coaches in that program that are phenomenal human beings and coaches. And I would send my best friend to work with any of those coaches, like top notch. Okay. However, I have found personally, and a lot of my clients have found that tracking macros, especially as a busy mom, just doesn't really fit. And there's a lot to it, but I'm going to just kind of dive in with this topic by talking about a story. And because I'm a storyteller, I'm just really big into the stories. I'm going to take a drink real quick because it's still delicious and hot. It gets colder as the time goes on. Hang on. It doesn't taste like my face, so that's good. I don't really know what my face tastes like. Okay, so why I stopped tracking macros. So I will never forget the day. And I mean, it's like burnt in my brain. So I went to the gym and I came home from the gym and I was walking in the door and everybody was kind of like moving around the living room, and it was just my typical chaos, toys everywhere, people running around. And then Brian, my husband, was in the kitchen cooking. And honestly, full transparency, he does a lot of the cooking. I don't enjoy cooking. And the more you listen to this podcast, you realize like it's just not my favorite thing in the whole entire world. And, I am working on saying, instead of saying I don't like cooking, I say I'm learning to tolerate cooking. It sounds a little less intense. But that's for another day. So anywho, Brian was cooking, and I do contribute, in other ways. Okay. But he does the cooking. So I came home, I had gone to the gym, and I was really tired and I was so hungry, and he's in there cooking. Right. And it smells so good. It smells delicious. Everything he cooks is delicious. I'm so thankful for him because he is an amazing cook and he likes cooking. So we're a perfect pair. And so I walked in there, and there were like all over the kitchen counter, there were like yellow sticky notes. Okay. So bear with me here. And I was looking at all the sticky notes, and I was kind of taking everything in. I'm like, okay. He had gone through all of the ingredients and all of the things that he was putting together for the dinner. And he had taken my food scale, and he had weighed all of the portions that were on my plate. And he had even noted like what oil he used, how much oil he used, and like the, whatever was in each specific item. And he put everything separate on purpose, when I think he typically would have just like mixed it all together, if that makes sense. And so he's an amazing guy. Like, that's amazing. And like, what a truly beautiful thing to have a husband or a partner that is supportive of your goals and sees what you're doing and wants to help you. And he knew that I'd been tracking macros for, gosh, I think it had been like 6 weeks at that point. And I had just finished my certification, and I wanted to like really dive in and like experiment on my own with my own body and just see how it worked, because I had tried it in the past and I just wasn't confident with how I did it. And then I had this certification, and I was like, oh yeah, like this is science-based stuff. Like, I'm so excited about this. Like, I can't wait to teach my clients this. And so I was looking at the sticky notes, and he was smiling at me, and he was like, hey babe, how was your day? And like, made dinner, and he starts plating his food up. He's got all the kids plated. Brian, my little toddler, he's already eating. And Leon, my oldest son, just sits down, and Brian goes to sit down, and I'm over there staring at all the sticky notes. And I kind of stopped, and I had this like, I describe it as like a panic. I legit panicked because I looked down and I noticed I didn't see the salad dressing anywhere on the sticky notes. Like, I didn't know how much salad dressing he had put on my salad, and he had already put the dressing on my salad. And in my head, I shit you not, in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, this is ruining everything. Like, I have been tracking so perfectly. I've been hitting every single macro. Like, I've like every night I go to bed, and I've only like been off like by a couple grams and either way. And like, he forgot the dressing, and dressing is like really high in fat. And I just looked over in that moment, almost mad, like ready to snap at him, which is so embarrassing to say out loud. And I looked over, and you guys, when I tell you this immediate like sense of, it was like a mix of guilt, frustration, shame. It was a terrible feeling, because I looked over and my whole family was sitting down to eat dinner together. They were talking. Leon was telling a funny story because he's very funny. He's a very funny kid. And then little baby Brian was like almost done eating, and he was already throwing things. And they were like 3/4 of the way through their meal. And what was I doing? Like, what was I doing? I was flipping out over salad dressing, and I missed an entire meal, like a moment that I will never get back with my family at a table together, which doesn't always happen. And if you're a mom, like sitting at the table together in today's world is really hard to manage everybody's schedules, especially when both parents are working, right? And there's soccer practice, and there's, dance or whatever you're doing, and getting together at a table to eat food and just be a family, that's so rare. And I freaking wasted it. I wasted it, and it hit me in the pit of my stomach. And when I tell you, I made a decision in that moment, I am not kidding you. I realized that I thought that macros and tracking my food and like being hyper diligent about what I was eating and how much I was eating it. I thought I was like making my better and easier, and I thought I was in more control, and I'm a control freak. Brian will tell you. And then I realized, holy crap, I'm not in control at all. If I was in control, I would have been sitting at that table talking with my family, hearing what joke that Leon had told. And I wasn't in control. My diet, yes, tracking macros was a diet for me. It was controlling me. When I think about control, I think about somebody or something changing the way you would typically live your life, either against your will or unknowingly, right? And that's kind of what tracking macros did to me, to be honest. I felt like it was being forced, but it was all my decision making, right? And so I didn't have control. And I wouldn't have spent, 20 minutes staring at my plate trying to figure out how many grams of protein and fats and carbs was there. Typically, like I would have much rather have been with my family. And so that is kind of the moment. I actually, like that night, I was so sad. I talked to Brian. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And he was like, oh, it's okay. And he was just like, yes, because he knew I was crazy about it. So I'm sure if Brian listens to this, he'll be like, yeah, that was the moment my day got better. But yeah, that was a big deal for me. I realized like it wasn't worth it. And honestly, after 6 weeks, I did see results. Like I put myself in a deficit, and I was like, okay, like I'm losing some weight, but I'm like, at what cost, right? Like weight loss was important to me, and not necessarily weight loss. Cause me personally, I was trying to, and I just had a toddler, right? Like I have a toddler. So I still, I would consider myself still postpartum. Like postpartum is any time after a birth, right? You can consider yourself postpartum 5 years, right? You can have a kindergartner and be postpartum, right? But we usually typically think of like the first year, right? Well, I still didn't love the way my body composition was, and aesthetic goals, that's a discussion for another time because I want to keep this kind of short and sweet. And I was also trying to put on some muscle. So prior to tracking, I was purposefully, intuitively eating more calories so that I could kind of put more muscle on my frame. And I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to try out a deficit, aka a fat loss phase, and make it like laser accurate, right? And it did. Like in 6 weeks, I lost some weight and I had some muscle that started to show through. But it's just like, it wasn't worth it. It was so much work. And I know that if there's somebody listening here that tracks macros or coaches with macros, you might think like, oh, it's not that hard. Like once you like pre-log your food and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pre-log my food. I don't want to obsess over numbers. I have a past history of like being brainwashed by diet culture. And if you're listening to this, you're probably close to my age, and you grew up too with the yellow polka dot bikini commercial with the Yoplait, the Special K diet. I was talking to somebody about, like Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers. Like I remember being in my grandma's kitchen. She used Weight Watchers, and she was always like a fit grandma. She was just like, she was really like, on it with her appearance, and she always, had her lipstick, whatever. But I remember I was going to put butter on my toast, and she was like, you don't need that much butter. And I love my grandma. I love my grandma. I mean, nothing negative about that, but like she was raised a certain way too, where like you had an appearance to uphold, and, and she was talking openly about the points that she was keeping with her Weight Watchers program. And it just like, I didn't know it in those moments. And those are just like a couple examples where, thinking about what I was taking in, this kind of like external knowledge that we basically digest all the time that we're not even aware of, especially our children. This is why it's so big to think about, because you have kids that you are talking around and creating behaviors around, and they're watching you, right? And I didn't realize I was taking in so much external knowledge by the time that I was a young adult, and I had, my first baby very young, that first postpartum experience. Maybe I need another drink of coffee. Hang on. Yeah, I did. That first postpartum experience, I was looking for any way to drop the weight. I remember things like Garcinia cambogia, and there was like hydroxycut. There were all these other like weird things, and like the green tea diet. Like when I tell you, Oh yeah, cutting out carbs, like not eating bread. Like, God, I love bagels. Guys, I love bagels. But I was cutting out bread, bagels, anything, all the things that I love. And I felt like shit. Why? Because if you cut things out like that, carbohydrates are is your body's preferred energy source. So you're going to feel like shit and you're going to have no energy. But anywho, and so I was taking in all this external knowledge, and I grew up completely obsessed with losing weight and finding the best hack, the best way to do it so that I could be accepted by everybody else around me. And I'm kind of going off track here, but I think it's an important conversation to bring up, especially if you're somebody who has struggled with it too, because it just doesn't go away, right? Like, you don't just like stop struggling with body image. You don't just stop struggling with kind of like your past trauma with diet culture, but you definitely can get better and you can be more aware and you can catch yourself in the moment, right? And once again, that's probably for another podcast, but I think it's important to recognize that part of my past because I became very obsessed. I remember one time, gosh, I was in college. All I was doing was tracking calories in my MyFitnessPal. I had no idea about macros when I was in college. I really didn't. I mean, I knew what macros were: protein, carbs, and fats, like the macronutrients, right? The nutritive components in food. Sorry, I shouldn't just assume that everybody knows what macros is. But macros are, like I said, the nutritive components in food: protein, carbs, and fats, right? And people talk about fiber a lot as like a separate category, but anywho, I'm going to stop because I'm going to lose track. Okay. I'm a damn squirrel. Okay. And so I took in a lot of external knowledge and I was so obsessed, and I was actually just typing in like a banana, a turkey sandwich, and it would just tell me how many calories on MyFitnessPal. Not very accurate at all. And I'm telling you right now, I set my calories to 1,200. Like, that was it. 1,200 calories. That was what I allowed myself, just because like 1,200 was like the buzz number. Like, that was the number to lose weight. And that was terrible. That was terrible. It literally wrecked my brain. And I spent so much of my life obsessed with numbers. And then I was like, oh yeah, like tracking macros, that's going to be perfect for me. That's going to be exactly what I need. And what did it end up being? Another diet. It ended up being another obsession. And like I said, this isn't for everybody, but in my case, that's how it turned out. And I have found in a lot of cases, even people that track macros may not even realize it. So if you do, maybe think about this, am I like able to release control? Like, what would happen if I stopped tracking macros? What would happen? And if you're like nervous about stopping tracking macros, that might be a good sign to consider other ways to kind of manage your health and your nutrition. But I digress. Let's talk about why I help my clients eat more like a toddler. No, I don't tell them to throw their food when they're sitting in their high chair, or to tell you no when you offer them a food that's really not going to hurt them, but they think it's death. But when I say eat like a toddler, your toddler, before it watches you, I don't want to call it an it, sorry, before he or she watches you, before they pick up on your habits, before you kind of like plant seeds along the way, because I hate to say it, but by the time they're 2, they've already watched you eat. They've watched what you eat. They've watched you go to the grocery. They've watched you talk about your body. They've watched you talk about the foods you eat. Also, they eat a diet that you eat, right? Like, if you're somebody that hates Brussels sprouts, it's very unlikely that you're going to offer Brussels sprouts to your toddler. So the point is, if we can eat like a toddler before they realize that there's like, what you like in your diet, right? So I guess I should say maybe more like a baby. Babies eat intuitively, right? Like, we are born with this innate ability to eat food, taste the food, decide if we like it, and then listen and tune into the way our body responds to that food. Okay. And I hate that we've kind of just gotten further and further and further away from connecting to our bodies. And a part of that comes from the fact that we live in fast food nation. I mean, everything. Food is readily available. You go to the grocery store, you can get anything you want, right? You go to McDonald's, you can get a cheeseburger. You go to Starbucks, you can get some egg bites. It is literally at our fingertips. Everything can be microwaved. You can get things in a can, right? You can get things in a bag. You can get things in a little prepackaged, already cooked thing, right? Like, food is way easier to get than it's ever been before. And so we don't have to go out and kill, a buffalo to eat, right? We don't have to hike 20 miles through thick brush to find some blackberries, right? To get our fiber in. We do have things in place in today's world where, because we are no longer in that fight or flight mode, or that like kind of like hunter gatherer, like real innate, like caveman style mentality, then because of that, things like stress and anxiety, those all come into play actually. So there's a lot there, and that's maybe for another podcast. There's just so many things I want to talk to you guys about. But my thing here is, if we can do what our ancestors did so long ago, where they just decided when they were full, they listened to their body's hunger and fullness and said, okay, I've had this much buffalo, like I'm in a couple berries and I feel pretty good. You know, my digestion's good. I feel good. And I feel like I can go run and go build a shelter, like whatever it may be. Or maybe they eat a buffalo and they poop their pants. Well, they don't have pants probably. They just like poop everywhere. And so they're like, oh, like that hurt my belly. I'm never going to eat that from that place again. Like I'm going to travel a different place to go find food. So my point is here, they had to listen to their bodies. They didn't have a phone to pull out and be like, is this buffalo safe to eat? They couldn't type in how many calories in this handful of blackberries. They couldn't type in, you know, how do I get in more protein so I can be better at the kill? Like it just, and I know I'm being a little silly and I'm being very dramatic, but I want to make the point that we can lose weight, maintain our weight, put on muscle, do all the things that we want to do without tracking macros, without tracking calories, right? And with intuitive eating, okay, which is what I practice and what my clients practice, with intuitive eating, it's not a set of rules. It's not just like, eat whatever you want, good luck, like whatever, all hands on deck. You just eat whatever you want. You want that cookie? Eat that cookie. You want all that cake? Eat that cake. You want to eat 3 McDonald's cheeseburgers? Go for it. You want to cook yourself salmon every night? Eat salmon every night. You want ice cream every night? Ice cream every night. If you just want to eat apples, just eat apples. It's not like that. And I think a lot of people get this, like they're misinformed about what intuitive eating really is. And intuitive eating is a set of principles, kind of like guiding posts to help you kind of heal your relationship with food and reconnect to your body internally. And something called interoceptive awareness, which is being aware of your internal cues and being connected to your body so that you understand when you're hungry, or maybe why you're hungry, or what you're feeling and how that's connected to your hunger. And just really the idea of mindfulness, because mindful eating is not intuitive eating. They're not interchangeable. So mindful eating is a practice. So it's being aware and present in the moment in the act of eating, right? Or the thought of eating, just kind of being aware. And so what we do is we take those two things and we kind of merge them together and use them to support you in making value and goal aligned decisions. Okay, here's where it gets individualized, because every single person has different values, different goals, different ideas, different, body composition goals, things like that, different lifestyles, different food likes and dislikes, right? We live in different parts of the world. Our access to food is different. And so your diet should be specific to you. And so what's beautiful about intuitive eating is you get to decide. You are in control. You break free from calorie jail, where you are limited to a certain number. You get to decide, and maybe in the winter, your body looks a little different. Maybe in the summer, your body looks a little different, right? Your body's going to look different while you're pregnant, or postpartum, or going through a really stressful time at work, or going through something that's really exciting, right? Your body is supposed to change. It's not supposed to be a stick your entire life, just so you know. And it's okay that it changes, but because your body adapts, it's all a part of your body's plan to thrive. Your body does not want you to be overweight, uncomfortable, in pain, inflamed, have gut issues. Your body doesn't want that. Your brain doesn't want that, okay? And reaching for external support, external knowledge, and always listening to what everybody says around you, it's fine. There's a time and a place for that. But if we don't start going inward and reconnecting to our bodies, the one thing that we really, a lot of people just want to, I think about just popping your head off your body so you don't have to deal with it. If you're somebody that looks in the mirror and you don't like what you see, you don't want to deal with it, right? You just want the the golden ticket, the pill, whatever it is. There is so much power in being able to use your knowledge of yourself and your needs and your likes and your dislikes and your emotions and your lifestyle to then create habits around nutrition and movement and relaxation and fun and mindfulness, right? So, which we'll talk about in a minute, because those are 5 of the things that I use in my newest program. When we get to a point where we can do that, you are going to be thriving, baby. You are going to be living your best life ever because you aren't trapped by your phone app anymore. You don't have to be like, should I eat this? Oh, let me just ask the smart person in my phone. That looks really yummy. Let me ask it how much of it I should eat. If you could, wish you were watching on video. If you're listening to audio, I feel like you're being cheated of an experience because I just did like the face. Hang on. That face. And you'll never know unless you go to YouTube and watch it. So, sucks for you. Anyway, so I'm going to take a drink. So freaking good. If you don't drink coffee, what's wrong with you? Anywho, so my point is, I went on a little bit of a rant there, but it's so important to reconnect to your body so that we are no longer controlled by our diet. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I really, truly believe that tracking macros can turn into another diet. I said it. Don't hate me. I'm just being honest. I love you. I promise. This is out of love for you. The other point I want to make about intuitive eating is that this doesn't mean that we completely disregard external knowledge, like nutrition labels, macros, the science behind eating, right? Like, don't look at science. Just listen to your heart. It's not like that. It's not like we're going to go sing Kumbaya together and eat our cheeseburgers without thinking about it. It's not like that. And honestly, I like to think about intuitive eating, especially in the way that I work with my clients, as intentional eating, right? You're intentionally eating to serve your values, your goals, or a purpose, or there's a reason behind the eating, right? Because there's always a reason. You're either eating because you're hungry, you're eating because you're trying to, hit your macros, because I know a lot of people who eat past fullness just to hit their protein and they have a bellyache. Like, how is that okay? I know people who restrict, right? And to be in a calorie deficit, you will be a little bit hungry. That's also another podcast to talk about. Just being in a deficit can be hard, but there's a balance here. And what's happening is people are just assuming you have to be one way or the other. It has to be like, track every number, look at your macros, hit it every single time. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Or it's like, like eat like an asshole. I'm sorry. Like, just eat whatever you want. Doesn't matter. And that is not the way it has to be. And maybe this is annoying. I don't know. Maybe this is annoying to you, but what I'm about to say could be really annoying. You got to find the balance in the middle. Okay. And what that looks like is my new program I just launched. I'm so excited. When this podcast comes out, it's already going to be out on the internet. It's called Reclaim You. All right. And in this 4-month fat loss program, it's one-on-one program that I've made specifically for moms who are just so sick and tired of like driving their car on this like diet roundabout. Like, I just picture, you ever been in like a busy city where you're like on this roundabout and you're like, oh my gosh, where's my exit? And then you like miss it and you have to like go around again. You're like, shit, okay, I'm going to get this time. I missed it. And you go around and then you take the wrong one and you're like, oh man, you have to go back around and do the roundabout again. That is literally how I think about diets. My entire life has been a roundabout of diets and taking the wrong exit. And so what's amazing about Reclaim You is it's 4 months of honest, beautiful direction where I sit beside you and we make a plan that fits you. Okay? I help support you in learning how to reconnect to your body, how to pay attention to your hunger and fullness, how to move away from things that feel restrictive, enjoy all the fun foods, but also have some discipline, because I'm sorry, once again, don't hate me, but self-discipline is a part of the game. Motivation is bullshit. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's bullshit. Motivation doesn't last. So we're not going to be relying on motivation together. Sorry about you. Action. Okay. Action creates momentum. So we're going to be doing a whole lot of action taking. But instead of just doing what you've done every other time and getting carsick from going around and around and going all in and then being like, oh, I just feel like crap, I don't want to do this anymore, and quitting. Going all in and then having a bad night where you eat a cupcake and you're like, oh, it's over. Look, I'm only saying this because I've done this all myself, or going all in and then burning out a couple weeks later because you're like, I can't keep up with this. We've all done that. And I'm tired of it. I am tired of watching people I love, because because I love you. I know people don't hear that enough, and I'm not trying to be weird, but like I do. I love you. I love you so much. And I don't want to watch you have your joy stolen from you because you're stuck in this diet roundabout. And Reclaim You is all about reclaiming you. This isn't about Barbara or Becky or Sarah or your neighbor Dan. This is about you. Okay? Those are really weird names. I don't know why I chose those names. That was weird. Maybe I'll cut that part out. Anywho, so when I say reclaim you, when you think of the word reclaim, it's like reaching out, grabbing it, and getting it back. I think of like my toddler Brian, when somebody at daycare, he told me a little boy like stole his car from him, and he was like, I took it back, mama. And that's what I think about. Like, diet culture ripped my car out of my hand, and I'm taking it back, baby. And I'm reaching and I'm grabbing it and I'm pulling it with all my might. It's empowering to take control again. And when you step into that power, you become unstoppable and you get results. That's the best part. You feel good, you get results, and then you don't have to track anything anymore. It's a win-win. Right? And so I want to just briefly mention to you that just because I teach intuitive eating and we use mindful eating practices, that doesn't mean, like I said, that we're at one end or the other of the spectrum. We still learn about nutrition labels. I coach you through how to read one. We talk about macros and why protein is important to keep you full longer, right? So you're not like starving and raiding the fruit snacks at the end of the night, right? And you know how carbohydrates give us energy and how eating carbohydrates, sometimes certain times of the day, can really change the game for you. But it's all about experimenting with your body. I can't tell you what is going to work exactly, but what I can do is give you the tools and the tactics that I know that has worked to then fit that into your life. And then we do some experimenting, right? We take the time to test it out and listen to how our body responds. And that's what's so frustrating is, you know, people just assume like, oh, I'm going to go on this diet. I'm going to go on the, you know, I'm trying to think of one, like the Atkins diet or the low carb diet, you know, keto, whatever. That's a very like specific diet. That does not take into account the individual. All right. And what I do love, oh my gosh, I'm going to say this. What I do love about tracking macros is that it is individualized, right? It is a plan. It's a science-based equation where we are thinking about your lifestyle. We're thinking about your dietary needs. We're also taking into account your weight, your BMI, your height, all of these things, how active you are daily. And I won't throw a bunch of big words at you, but it's basically just an equation where we find a set of numbers of macronutrients, a combination of protein, carbs, and fats that are going to help you reach your goals. That's great. So I don't want to just completely like disregard that knowledge and the importance of understanding why we eat certain foods and maybe why other foods may not be the best choice for us depending on our goals. However, tracking then becomes an obsession. And here's the honest truth. What really matters are averages, and even a macro coach will tell you this. What really matters are averages. What are we consistently doing over time? And tracking becomes an obsession. And if we can just kind of be in the right ballpark and our body is comfortable and we're thriving and we are getting feedback from our own bodies, then we can just ride that. We don't have to be specific and track every single gram of food. Every bite, lick, and taste. That one drives me crazy. Gosh, and I used to coach that way. Like I used to be like, all right, every bite, lick, and taste. Now, that doesn't mean that my clients don't pay attention to those bite, licks, and tastes. But we're not going to track them, okay? I'm not going to track that lick of ice cream I had with my child. I'm not going to do it. You can't make me. And so what this looks like is just being aware of things like portions, especially your default portions. Whether you know it or not, maybe start paying attention. But a lot of us, for example, if we're making dinner and there's like pasta involved, that's one that a lot of people eat, or rice or something like that. We, whether we know it or not, are in the habit of grabbing a certain amount of pasta on our plate or a certain amount of rice on our plate, just like a default thing. Like that's what we think we want, right? Now, if you're tracking macros, you would weigh that on a scale, right? And you would get a specific number of how many. But when it comes to intuitive eating, or I should start with this way, when it comes to just like not intuitively eating, not really thinking about it, just kind of going on autopilot, sometimes we overserve ourselves. Sometimes we underserve ourselves. And with intuitive eating, the way that we kind of use a scale is, well, thinking about the hunger scale, but that's We'll talk about that in a minute. But we, portion our food out and we pay attention. We look at our plate before we eat it. We have our pasta, we have the sauce on top, we have the meatballs, whatever, the salad on the side, whatever we're doing. And we create awareness. Okay. Being mindful means being present in the moment. And I'm telling you right now, once again, you hear the word mindfulness and you're like, oh gosh, here we go. She's so woo woo. Like, blah, blah, I don't have time for that. I got a toddler hanging on my neck while I'm trying to eat food and I'm standing over the kitchen sink, just trying to scarf it down. Listen, I get it because I've been there. I am there. But it doesn't have to be like a mindful 5 minutes of wafting the food into your nasal passages. No, it doesn't have to be like that. It can literally be, look down at your plate. Literally 2 seconds. Look down at your plate. Okay, this is about what I'm eating. Okay, paying attention to it. And then starting to eat and stopping in the middle of your meal and checking in with yourself, taking 2 seconds and just being like, okay, how does my belly feel? Oh, my belly seems like it's like kind of pushing against the button on my blue jeans. It doesn't feel very good. I'm actually kind of full. Take a deep breath. I think I want a couple more bites. That sounds good. And so you take a couple more bites. You're like, no, you know what? I think I'm full. You don't have to be a part of the clean plate club. That's another thing I coach a lot of my clients through is they grew up in a world where like you had to be a part of the clean plate club. You got to clean your plate. I grew up that way. I had to drink the milk out of my cereal bowl. Okay. Rest in peace, my sweet grandma. But that was because of the way that she lived and there was food scarcity. But anywho, it all just adds up. It's crazy how everything connects. But so finding that middle ground, right? And so we start paying attention to the default portions that we normally serve ourselves. So let's say that night you ate spaghetti or whatever you were making. You were like, oh, I only ate about like 3/4 of that. Next time I serve myself, I'm going to serve myself a little bit less, like purposefully. And then depending on what your goals are, you can adjust those portion sizes and knowing once you have a couple weeks of practice with this, it's going to get easier. And the hard part about it is if you're doing it on your own, it can be tricky if you don't have a sounding board. Somebody sitting beside you, kind of guiding you and encouraging you and showing you the way. And that's what's so great about hiring a coach is then you have somebody in your back pocket at all times that you can be like, hey, I noticed this happened when I ate, or I felt this way when I ate, or I reached for the chocolate tonight and I looked down and I realized I did it because we're paying attention to what we're eating now. And I guess I never really did before. And I noticed I wasn't even hungry. And I don't even know why I was reaching for it. I think it was just a habit, right? Like things start to show up that you didn't even know were there. And it's really amazing and it's so empowering. And I want you to be able to feel what that's like, to feel like you're finally like your head's attached to your body again and you are in control. And what's also great about intuitive eating is that you can just enjoy food for the experience. It doesn't have to be for fuel. God, it just drives me crazy because I used to be the coach that would say that. I'm calling myself out because listen to me, the only filter I use is in my coffee. I do not use a filter. I'm very real, very raw. And so, yeah, I used to be like, oh yeah, food is fuel, guys. You fuel up. You got to eat your food. You got to eat more food. But it's like, no, I mean, let's be honest with each other here. We're friends. That birthday cake that you ate and that beer you drank, that was not about fuel. All right. That was just about the experience. There was nothing very fuely about a birthday cake with really, really sweet icing that actually kind of hurts your teeth. Okay. But is it a birthday without a birthday cake? No, it's a part of the experience. And so what's really great is I also encourage you to think about what food is for you depending on what you're doing. And if it's going out with the girls, instead of being like Googling the menu before and being like, ooh, how many calories in this? How many calories in that? Okay, I just won't get appetizers because I don't want to split anything because I don't want to know how much I ate. And I'll get this meal because it says it's on the low calorie. Oh, that sounds exhausting. And so instead of doing all that as an intuitive eater, you can say, you know what? Tonight I'm going out with my friends and I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to make sure I pay attention to my hunger and fullness. I'm going to be distracted. I know that because I'm a talker. And you can say like, okay, once we get the appetizer on the plate, I'm going to plate a portion instead of just taking out of the main thing or the main entree plate. I'm going to pull myself one of those little side plates that, to be honest, a lot of us don't use. We just dig in, right? Get your nachos, you just take them out, right? Instead, you portion yourself what you think looks good for you and that looks different for everybody. And you eat. And then when you're done with your little plate, that's a trigger. That's a cue for you to check in with your body, right? These are just like little like nuggets. These are just like tiny little pieces of how I coach my clients. And I'm telling you, I feel like I have one of those like Batman utility belts, and I'm like full of like little like pull this one out, like pull this one out, like little tricks. and that's because I've done it through experience, like because I've learned through experience, and I've done all of the dumb stuff. I've done, not that you're dumb. I'm not calling anybody dumb. I can call myself dumb though. But like I did all this stupid stuff and I was miserable. And you know, I'm not perfect now. And I still have moments where I have to rein it in. And I still have moments where I'm like, oh man, I definitely overate. Like I should not have eaten that much. My belly hurts. And I have those like intrusive thoughts like, oh gosh, I'm going to gain like 10 pounds. Oh no, like what is happening? Or the scale's up the next day after drinking alcohol. And I'm like, oh no, it's over. Like, but then I'm like, hit myself in the head. I'm like, Brittany, you are not going to gain 50 pounds from overeating pasta one night. Averages matter. You're fine. You don't need to spiral. You just eat your next meal like you normally would. And the power, when I tell you, like that is the secret sauce. Because once you have that power and you're able to rein it in when you need to, kind of let go of the reins in times that life is stressful, or you kind of just need to go out, like go on vacation and enjoy yourself and not think about it, you start to train your body and your mind to work together on its own. And that's why this works. And I will scream it from the rooftops that my method, the way that I coach my clients, is the best way to lose weight, the best way to live your life so you're not completely obsessed and just completely controlled by food, and the best way to break free from diet jail. Okay? And before I jump off here, because I'm a talker, so I hope you've enjoyed all my ranting, I want to tell you about Reclaim You. Okay? And I call it the high five method. Okay. Why? Because high fives are cool. And when like you reclaim you, I'm going to high five you. I'm going to be like, yes, boom, high five you. And also high fives are fun and exciting. And also it's your hand, right? And one way I like to think about awareness, if I have moments where I'm like stressed out or worried or having a freak out, if you just open up your hand and stare at it and look at, oh man, I'm looking at the calluses and the weird dryness. I'm a redhead, so like my skin is just really rough. Anyways, just like stare down at one little wrinkle in your hand and just kind of allow yourself to breathe through it. And then sometimes that can calm you down. But anyways, that's another little tidbit. But the reason I call it the high five method is because it's always with you and it's connected to your body. And right here we start, number one, and these are all the things that are like, I guess they're like the pillars of Reclaim You and kind of how I coach you. But the way that we jump into each of these 5 things depends on what you need most, right? So I can't just be like, this is how we do it and this is how you end up. It's like, okay, what do we need to look at first? And then how can we get you to your goal? But like number 1 always is nourishment, food, nutrition, right? Number 2 is movement and exercise, because movement and exercise can be a little bit different. Number 3 is restoring and recharging. Number 4 is play, which is my absolute favorite, because we don't live in a world where we have leisure anymore. I mean, I wrote a paper in college about the importance of leisure in our lives and what that does to our mental health if we don't have fun, if we don't have leisure, if we don't have humor, if we don't have just relaxation. And so fun and play is on my list. And then last, awareness. And I talked a lot about that on this podcast. But those are the 5 of the high fives, right? And awareness being really starting to pay attention in a world where we are constantly distracted. And so the high five method will completely change the game for you. It will make being healthy feel like less of a chore and more of like a way of doing, which is ideal, right? And so I'm going to stop blabbing about all of this, but and I'm not trying to like bring you to my side, and I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. However, I am encouraging you to experiment, to consider what it would be like if we could just reconnect to our bodies, to ourselves, and then use that external knowledge. Don't just disregard nutrition labels. Don't disregard science, but use that. And then like it can coexist with your internal cues. And then you have the diet that is reclaiming you. That's the you in Reclaim You. Okay. It's reclaim those 5 things, the high 5, but then it's you. And that comes from whatever you need, the values that you have, the goals that you have, the life that you want to live, the person you want to be. That's the you part. That's the important part, right? And I help you reclaim you. I think I'm done yapping at you, but I'm just like so excited. And when this podcast comes out, there will only be one more day. I'm running a special discount for $100 off your first month. So if you are interested, or you want to just like hop on a call and talk to me and just like tell me your story, I would love to listen. If you fill out an application, just go to my Instagram bio. I'll also put it here in the show notes, and you can click that and you can fill that out, and I will get back to you within 24 hours. And we can just hop on a call. It doesn't commit you to anything, but if you don't click that link and fill out an application before Wednesday at midnight, then the $100 is gone. See you later. It's gone. So just do it. Just fill out the application. If you are even like considering it, I would love to get on a call. And this isn't me like just trying to like sell you hard. It's just a call where we will decide like, are we a good fit? Because I'm going to be honest with you. Once again, I don't have a filter. I will tell you if I think that we're not a good fit. I will tell you if I think that you're not ready for my program, or that it's just not, it doesn't seem like we would work, because we got to vibe, right? We got to vibe a little bit, especially if I'm going to be sitting beside you passenger seat, for 4 months. So anywho, I hope that this podcast was at least eye-opening for you, and it allowed you to kind of get some perspective. Perspective is important, and also just being open to other ideas and thoughts makes you a happier and better human. So I think that's it. I hope that you walk away from this feeling empowered, that weight loss is possible for you. Your body can change, and that it's okay that if you're unsure or kind of lost at where to start, and that you have a coach willing to help support you if that's something that you want to do. And I want to remind you that you are loved, and I want the very best for you. And I'm so excited that you've been sitting passenger seat with me with my awkward face mug, and my coffee's kind of cold now, so I'm going to go reheat it. But I hope that you have the best day ever. And thank you so much for listening, and share this please with somebody who needs to hear it. The more times that you share this, comment on this, give me reviews, like whatever it is, like that supports me so much. And then it helps me support other people, other moms, right? And that's what I really want. So that's all I have. I hope you have a great day, and yeah, we'll talk soon. See you in the next one.